Good evening. Thanks for being here. I'm Troy Charles, and here are your top stories. Thunder Bay City Council will decide the future of Victoriaville tomorrow night. It's being recommended that the mall be demolished, with that section of Victoria Avenue being reopened to pedestrians and vehicles. Ryan Benazzo has the details that will be considered by council members before they cast their vote.
Victoriaville has been operating at a deficit ever since it opened in 1980. Last year, the mall cost the city more than $473,000. The roof will also need extensive repair if the facility stays open. The proposed demolition and subsequent street reconstruction are loosely estimated to cost about $10.75 million. Administration has now provided answers to a number of questions asked by councillors when the report first came to council last month. For example, the demolition would result in more than $8,600 in lost municipal taxes for the city and nearly $2,300 in provincial education taxes. However, future taxes as a result of downtown renewal efforts that would take place if the mall is demolished should more than offset those initial losses. The Thunder Bay Police Service and the Crime Prevention Council have also provided comment. The police service says opening up Victoria Avenue may make the area safer with improved lighting and sightlines. The Crime Prevention Council's member organizations are split on whether it's a good idea to remove Victoriaville. Those in support also cite safety as well as the overall perception of the area. Those opposed note that losing the facility means losing a safe indoor space for vulnerable people. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
Possibility of a new streetcar order for Bombardier is a promising sign, but local leaders say they're waiting to see where major chips fall before declaring a victory for the company's Thunder Bay manufacturing plant. Dominic Pasqualino, president of Unifor Local 1075, said a recommendation from Toronto Transit Commission for a new $140 million order of 13 streetcars from Bombardier wouldn't make much of an impact for the workers he represents. A 13-car order isn't going to cut it, he said. However, if provincial and federal governments come through with matching funding needing to boost the order to 60 cars, Pasqualino was confident Thunder Bay would be the logical place to build them. Mayor Bill Morrow called the news an encouraging sign, one he hopes will be backstopped by investment from upper levels of government. The TTC recommendation stipulates that all streetcars would be delivered between 2023 and 2025. The TTC board will consider approval of the 13 streetcar order on Thursday. Thunder Bay Superior North MPP Michael Gravel is optimistic on the future of ambulance service in his riding following a consultation with regional stakeholders last month. Last week, we reported some concerns held by area mayors as a result of a consultation that suggested the closure and amalgamation of 4 ambulance bases along the North Shore and the closure of the base in Beardmore. Gravel says EMS is extremely important, especially in the region, and notes the consultations are part of a 10-year strategic plan for Superior North EMS, but as those consultations proceed, he intends to keep a watchful eye on what is and what is not recommended.
I know that each of the community leaders, each of the councils, each of the representatives, and let alone the community members themselves will be expressing their concerns very strongly. I'll be listening to them very closely, working closely in terms of the consultant's report as well, making sure that indeed at the end of the day, any decision that is made is in the best interest of the people living in those communities.
Gravel adds at this time the consultation process is still at a very early stage, meaning some suggestions may be phased out as things progress. The organization that represents 25 float plane companies and other small carriers in the Northwest says the lack of financial assistance from Ottawa during the pandemic could cause permanent damage to that industry. The head of the association says if help doesn't arrive soon, the economic recovery from COVID-19 will be even more turbulent than already expected. Adam Riley reports.
If we don't survive, we cannot contribute to the economic recovery when the time comes.
The president of the Northwestern Ontario Air Carriers Association says 2020 has effectively been a write-off for his members, and at this time, 2021 does not have a positive outlook. Float planes are the workhorse of the tourism sector, shuttling visitors and supplies to remote fishing lodges and outposts during the summer and fall months. Josh Very-Knickel's aircraft, like many others, have been grounded as their primary revenue base, American tourists, have been unable to cross the border. He says at best, many air carriers have not seen revenue since November of 2019, and anticipation of what was going to be a normal year paid for mandatory expenses prior to the declaration of the pandemic.
January, February, you're ordering, all your materials and even a lot of your fuel. But those are, if any dollar's been spent proactively in what was a prudent business plan, it's gone.
Now the association is calling on the federal government to do something to help out its members and others in the tourism industry with several recommendations, one of which being to increase available funding through FedNor's Regional Relief and Recovery Fund to $500,000 for applicants. Very Knickle says if something isn't done soon, the consequences will be dire.
There is seasonality to our financial arrangements, and that's one of the major concerns as we go into October, November here now. There is, I would say, there's a chance of a serious chance of insolvency for a handful of our members at this point.
Regional tourism in Northern Ontario brings in around $400 million annually to the economy. And Very Knickle fears that should all or a large number of air carriers fold as a result of the pandemic, any outfitters who do not have an air service of their own won't be able to operate their fly-in outposts when tourists are once again allowed to cross the border, which could then impact that revenue stream. Adam Riley, TBT News.
For over a decade, Roots to Harvest has been going into high schools for food-based programming that is hands-on and immersive, but this year executives had to come up with a new approach. Kayla Karim has more.
Roots to Harvest are normally in classrooms twice a month, but with restrictions for indoor spaces, the executives had to get creative with their traditional food programming sessions. They invested in a mobile kitchen to take to various high schools to ensure that their program would not be compromised. Program Director Aaron Stevens says the importance of continuing this program was extremely high, especially with the recent lack of interaction.
Like, kids are needing some hands-on learning, and so they're wanting to get out and do things. So what we're seeing is an increase of teachers who are bringing their kids outdoors to be engaged, to get a bit of physicality moving, but also seeing that we can cook in all environments and learn to be out cooking in all environments.
Students had a chance to experience various stations, from an outdoor pizza oven to roasting their toppings on an open fire. Erin Beagle, Executive Director, says their goal is to engage young people through food.
And our goal is to connect with kids, to explore and be curious about food and ingredients, to pull on any of their own food experiences and bring that in.
Students noted that this year was different from past years, but was still enjoyable.
It's pretty fun, actually. I'm enjoying it a lot.
You can't do as much as you could last year, but there's more strictly rules, but it's still pretty fun.
With only 3 weeks into the new programming, executives say they will continue to adapt to any more changes to keep the program active. Kayla Karim, TBT News.
The sign of snow on the ground this morning means winter is quickly approaching, and for golfers, it's a sad reality. The season is coming to a quick end. Arguably, the most unique golf season in memory provided a welcomed escape for golfers, with Chapels and Strathcona Golf Course seeing record numbers of rounds played. Avery McRae has the story.
While there are some around the Northwest who welcome the mid-October snow, but for golfers in the city, it's a sign of their days being limited. The season first began in mid-May, and over the 4 months, the courses around town saw a steady stream of customers, with tee times near impossible to find early in the season. With many team sports not running this summer due to the pandemic, many turned to golf, with Chapels and Strathcona golf courses seeing new clientele.
We did attract some people that hadn't golfed for a while, some new people that wanted to start up the game, and I think it's a good thing all around for golf across the city. I'm sure most of the other golf courses were busy as well, and we were just happy that we could do this in a safe environment.
Chapels and Strathcona Golf Course saw 25,000 rounds of golf played in 2019. This year, 3,000 more rounds were played, setting this year's total at 28,000 rounds played between the two city courses in just over 4 months, which Berezowski describes as phenomenal.
People definitely came out that hadn't golfed for a long time, that met up with new friends. Started out kids that maybe were in some of the other sports like soccer and baseball weren't able to do it. So they came over to the golf course and snuck in a few rounds.
The 2 city-run courses in Thunder Bay will allow golfers a few more days to sneak in one final round of golf this season. The courses will close by day's end on Wednesday to allow the courses time to properly close the links before the snow stays until the spring. Fort William Country Club and Whitewater Golf Club were among other courses in the city closed Sunday due to the light dumping of snow, but that doesn't mean the golf season is over quite yet in Thunder Bay. Emerald Greens on Dawson Road said they will allow golfers to play as long as possible, saying Mother Nature will decide when the season has officially come to an end. Avery McRae, TBT News.
Well, Mr. Mohorovic, tough news about the golf season, but what do you got coming up for us in sports?
The NLCS Game 7. There's nothing better in sports, right? We get the highlights after the break.